Hey everybody, Mike Naso here from IPR365.com and PodWeather.com with the latest on the tropics. We do have the second tropical depression of the 2009 Atlantic hurricane season, which has just moved off the coast of Africa. You can see it there starting to look a little bit more impressive, on the verge of becoming our first tropical storm of the year, which would be named Anna, and moving off behind it a very large and powerful wave that almost all models show could be a significant hurricane. And with it being August, that is not out of the realm of possibility. Let's go first to our depression. As of 11 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, TD2 was at 14.8 north, 31.5 west. Winds were 35 miles an hour, gusting to 45. The Hurricane Center notes that it's very close to becoming a tropical storm. It's moving west at 12, and that is important because if it continues to move west, then we might see a track more along the lines of the southern edge of this cone, which would put it a little bit closer to the islands in the longer range. However, some models are indicating that it's going to move much further north than that, thus we have that cone of uncertainty with our system. It's currently at 1,006 millibars, and it is forecast to become Tropical Storm Anna either overnight tonight by tomorrow morning, probably around 5 a.m. it'll be named, and then strengthen a little bit and then begin to encounter more unfavorable conditions as it heads up by Sunday night in this region here, and weaken and be a moderate tropical storm of 50, 45 miles an hour, somewhere 40 to 50 miles an hour by the end of this path here. But that does not mean that it can't come back down the road, and where exactly it goes down the road, that's too far out to try and get a grasp of. The latest satellite loop of our tropical depression does show, you can see that bursting in there, and at the end there it bursts pretty good enough to almost bring it up to a tropical storm. We hadn't seen that for the last, say, 12, 18 hours. Even when it was named, it was looking rather skimpy. And again, the center is right on the edge of this convection, but nevertheless it is bursting, and that means that strengthening is probably occurring, and if it's strengthening at all, then it's very, very close to becoming a tropical storm. Here's the last 24 hours. You can see our system, our two waves, the first wave moving off and then our tropical depression, and you can see what has happened since then. They have begun to progress, and certainly the bursting has continued over the center of our depression, and this wave has continued to burst and just be a real mess as it begins to move off. And this is the one that everybody's really concerned about, not even considering our tropical depression or storm that we will have, because this could be a threat to land masses down the road, unlike our depression. Now here's the model guidance for TD2, and again, the Hurricane Center even noted how well the models are in pretty good agreement that it's going to move west, maybe west-northwest, even in the longer ranges, so there's not a lot of uncertainty about this. Whether it moves a little bit closer to the islands and down the road towards the Bahamas, or if it starts to turn, that will be the big question with it. But right now there don't seem to be any definitive signs of land mass being impacted, at least not in the 5-6 day time frame. There's the upper level winds, and you can see it has very low wind shear. The only problem is that it's at kind of a higher latitude and the waters are a little bit cooler. Not as hot as they'd be if it were more down in this region. So wind shear shouldn't be a problem, but there is dry air to contend with, and there are marginal sea surface temperatures, which means that any significant strengthening into a hurricane seems unlikely at this point, at least through the 5-day period. That's not to say down the road, if it begins to turn and if the environment gets better down the road in the western Atlantic, that it wouldn't be able to strengthen, but that's too far out to try and comprehend just at this point. You can see water temperatures are only marginal as you get further out, but as it gets closer towards the western Atlantic, waters will get warmer. But again, the flip side for it is that wind shear will get stronger in front of it, and that should keep it from doing anything drastic as far as strengthening is concerned. Now behind it, you can see here's our wave moving off, and this is the one that for days now, almost every model from the European model to the Canadian to the GFS has shown not only developing, but becoming a significant hurricane and threatening land masses, including the United States down the road. And we really got to be concerned about it. Here's the Canadian model, and you can see it spins up our two systems, and within 5 or 6 days, what will be Anna is out here looking pretty intense as it moves up towards the north out to sea, probably becoming a hurricane based on this model resolution. And here comes our second system with that wave, taking a much further south track towards the islands of the Lesser Antilles, and that would be something we really have to concern ourselves with, because that could be a significant tropical cyclone if it does develop. And again, the model guidance does indicate that it will do so. Now, the GFS model has been indicating that our system will strengthen and then move throughout the Caribbean into the Gulf of Mexico, and you can see within a week and a half, 2 weeks, has an impact on Florida. So this is the wave just leaving Africa, but the models are already indicating that it will be a long-track, dangerous Cape Verde hurricane. And whether or not that occurs is still too early to tell. Again, there's the GFS. You can see what happens with our first storm, goes towards the Bahamas, and then ends up making landfall in Florida as a very weak system, while our second system is much more powerful behind it. And so that's going to be something that we need to watch as both of these systems progress. And you could even see there what we're tracking now with our depression ends up here in the southern Bay of Campeche as a very weak, ill-defined feature, while our wave leaving is a massive hurricane impacting the Gulf Coast. So this is going to bear watching over the next few days for sure. Now, moving on into the eastern Pacific, we do have this invest out here, and it's been trying to develop, but it hasn't formed a definitive low-level circulation, but nevertheless it's large, ragged, and the chance for development is code orange by the National Hurricane Center right now, so the chances are medium that this develops. And we do have another system that you might go, well, where is this? Tropical depression. And it's right here. Now, it'd be strange to see this system is not a depression, but this is. But the reason is a low-level circulation. Taking another look at it there, you can see the IR, our depression sitting right here. Here's our invest in the eastern Pacific. And here's the latest on Tropical Depression 9E as of 11 p.m. Eastern. It was at 14.9 north, 130.2 west. Winds were only 30 miles an hour. Our depression in the Atlantic stronger than this one, but they're both moving west at about 12-13 miles an hour, 1,007 millibars. And this is expected to even have a west-southwest component and become a tropical storm. The next name on that list is Guillermo, and this is expected to become a weak tropical storm named Guillermo. It burst about 12-18 hours ago pretty good, but now you can see a pretty naked swirl, but nevertheless there is a low-level circulation there as this moves on off towards the west. Now, elsewhere in the central Pacific, you can see we still have Felicia here just about to make landfall on Hawaii, very weak and ill-defined. And then we have a tropical storm here in the central Pacific as well that has a central Pacific Hawaiian name. First, Felicia, still out there, not 145 miles an hour, now down to 35 miles an hour, so depression. Had been up to a Category 4 a few days ago. It's at 20.6 north, 154.7 west. Winds are 35, gusting to 45. It's moving west at 9, 1,010 millibars, so very high pressure, very weak storm. Depression, actually, not even a storm anymore. Over the next few hours, it should cross the state of Hawaii as a depression and then pretty much dissipate and not be a feature, but there could be some rainfall, and that could cause some flash flooding. You can see we still have that swirl, but we don't even have the closed circle circulation like we had 12 hours ago. Now it's more almost open, so it's starting to fade away, but nevertheless impacting Hawaii like the models showed quite a long time ago. I remember about a week and a half ago I showed you the long-range models showed something impacting Hawaii. This is it. Now, Tropical Depression Maka was up to a tropical storm, was forecast to become a hurricane, but it has weakened. It's down at 13.9 north, 173.3 west. 35 miles an hour, gusting to 45, is moving west-northwest at 9, 1,009 millibars, and it is forecast to re-strengthen into a storm and then begin to weaken by the weekend and head generally northwest here over the open waters of the Pacific Ocean and eventually cross the international date line into the western Pacific. There you can see it there, kind of ill-defined as the visible satellite begins to go down out there, but nevertheless there is a circulation and some skimpy convection with it. In the western Pacific, we got rid of Morakot, which killed hundreds in China and Taiwan. The rainfall in these areas has been catastrophic. Nothing out there now, just some more residual showers. The tropical storm we had has moved out, Etau, but we do have a new system that looks like it might get spinning here near the Philippines, and we'll watch to see if this is our next storm in the Western Pacific. I'm Mike Naso from IPR365.com and PodWeather.com with the latest on the tropics. I'll see you next time.